Welcome back to That Rugby podcast, hosted by the Rugby Booth. Your boy Luke, boy Hughesy, back again. Look, we're 1 week out from a Super Rugby deciding champion. We've obviously just had the semi-finals. We're going to get some thoughts on that. We also had two other finals happen over the last weekend, so I actually got to sit down and watch 3 separate rugby games on Saturday, and it was like a dream for me. So the URC and the Premiership wrapping up their season.
I think it was a dream for your missus as well, not having to spend the day with you.
Yeah, well, actually, she was out, had a big night the night before, so she was laying in bed enjoying the fact that I couldn't pester her. So you're not wrong. So again, all coming to a good end of a club season. It feels good to be here. Let's start off though with Super Rugby, my friend. The Crusaders held on against the Blues. Chiefs did the good job against the Brumbies. Your first thoughts on those two games?
Look, I mean, we said it before. Crusaders don't lose in Canterbury. I mean, it was going to be a tough ask for the Blues. A respectable game for the Blues. You know, went in there, gave it their all. You know, the less said about a Crusaders win, the better. Chiefs Brumbies. Look, tough game for the Brumbies. I think losing Noah Lolesio early on to a head injury, forced off, was big for them. You know, Debrasini was serviceable, but he's not someone who can take you to a final. You know, I would have rated the Brumbies a lot better with Lolesio on the pitch, and you could see it was at a critical time of the game as well, because shortly before that, the Chiefs had a yellow card against them, and you know, without that playmaker there to, like, that top level playmaker that Lolesio is, to direct the Brumbies attack around, they didn't get much from the yellow card. They did get points, but they didn't get much. You know, the Chiefs though, just too good, just too good, and some boneheaded decisions at time from the Brumbies. I think there were a couple of times where I think early on they could have gone for some points and they didn't get it, and they didn't get any points at the back of it, anything like that. And I think it was Justin Harrison in the commentary said, you know, Super Rugby finals, there's no bonus points, right? You've just got to go for the win, right? So no point trying to stack up tries. You've got to take points when and where you can get them, especially against a New Zealand team in New Zealand. You've got to take the points when they're on offer. And I think that went against the Brumbies, and I think that shifted the momentum of the game when the Chiefs were able to beat them back there. But yeah, it was always going to be a tough ask to go into New Zealand to try and win, to break a curse over there in New Zealand, and the Brumbies couldn't get it done. But so still be very proud of their season. You know, what a tremendous year for them. It's going to be very interesting to see what they're like next year without Lolesio. James Slipper's re-signed. Huge longevity of, especially a front rower, is more than likely to break the all-time record for Super Rugby games played next season, and will become the first player to play 100 games for 2 separate clubs. Is a pretty incredible feat, particularly when you consider a front row is, you know, right at the coalface, is in, they're literally in the front row of the scrum. You know, it's right there in the name. You know, they're in all the most meaty, gritty, and difficult parts of the game with the least reward. And he soldiered on through. So I think that's tremendous for him. I think, I won't get too much into a season recap for the Brumbies. Just staying on the game. Look, Chiefs looked good. Chiefs looked very, very good. Look like they were recovered from that upset of the Blues fairly well. One thing I will say, just on this whole final thing, hopefully it gets looked at next year, because the fact that Chiefs hosted the final, as we already said, was bullshit, right? Now, you think about it like this, it's a very, very different set of circumstances if the Brumbies are hosting in Canberra as compared to having to travel to New Zealand, right? So also, if we go back now to that Crusaders game earlier in the season where Cole went against the Brumbies, it's a very different set of circumstances where even if the Chiefs do get to host a game, where the Chiefs are hosting the Crusaders in the same final and the Brumbies are hosting the Blues, you know. So I think the Brumbies will, it'll be in the back of their minds. They're not ones to make it vocal, as we've seen from Stephen Larkham, but in the back of their minds, they'll be like, we got screwed. We got screwed this season, but equally we screwed ourselves at the start of the season, not doing well enough there. But you know, each team went through patches of good form and bad form this season. The Brumbies they happen to get it at the worst times, and they happen to not get the calls. And so they end up traveling for a semi-final instead of hosting it, and it ends up costing them big time.
Yeah, look, as you said, I think they they will look back and they'll go, well, how did we start so slow in a season where we've been so good for the rest of it? You know, beating the Blues, and Eden Park stands out for them. That was sensational. And I go, they'll look back at that and go, that's where our season did come down to. Like, if you look back again, if it runs through Canberra, it's a different story. I watched that game and I go, it's hard. You can't obviously take the fact that they're playing in Hamilton out of it, but the Chiefs looked that good that I was like, even as an arrogant Hurricanes fan, I was like, I don't know if we would beat that Chiefs team. I don't know. Like, the Brumbies actually sized them up really well. And as you said, I just think, I was like, through that first half, I was like, they can hold on here. I disagree with Justin Harrison, as I probably do with everything he fucking says. But I think the Brumbies, their style is they're going to go into the corner, they're going to score tries, they're going to score tries, they're going to sure tries. And again, it hurts. They missed 2 conversions, Ryan Lonergan kicking instead of Noel Lassia. Like, those things actually do take effect. When it's a 21 rather than 17, it's like, because the Chiefs are one of the few teams in this comp that will take the 3. And Damien McKenzie, again, only missed 1 kick all game. So he was perfect from that point of view. And it's like, that does add up, and I totally understand the perspective. It's a final. You've just got to scoreboard pressure. But you look at the game last week against the Hurricanes, 5 tries, 5 conversions, win the game. That's how they do it. That's how I think they're very good at it.
It's different, though, playing in Canberra and doing that than travelling to New Zealand to do that.
And I agree, but I would say my argument is your identity is your identity. And I would have done, and I think if Stephen Larkham, say they kicked the points and still lost the game, you would be sitting here going, is this the identity of the Brumbies? Are they doing what we think is best for them? You know what I mean? Like, I think the Brumbies played the best way they could have, again, with losing Lolosea. Like, I truly believe, I think you saw it and we all saw it. They were so one-dimensional. It was literally like, hey, either our forwards are going to score and we're going to rumble with our forwards, or we're going to hope Tom Wright makes a break and passes the ball to Corey Toole. That was about it. That's all they really had in attack. Like, their centres didn't offer much as, again, I think Len Ikitau's a quality player. The back line didn't look like it was going to do anything. Via the full pack, it was all where all the muscle came from. So I go, look, as you said, it's a good really, again, a good season for them to make the semi-finals from where we saw them at the start. They'll be very disappointed with that. And again, sometimes you just come out against a player who's having an unworldly season, and Damien McKenzie, and I'm going to touch on this a bit later about the difference between being world-class and Super Rugby level. And as you mentioned, Debrasini. Debrasini's like that serviceable player in Super Rugby, but he's not even Super Rugby level, if you really think about high Super Rugby level. Where we go, Noah Lolosia's constantly going to be on that brink of like very, very high-class Super Rugby, but not quite world-class. Like, I wouldn't put them in that world-class group. So I go, you do lose a lot there, and I think that's got to be taken into account. But they're going to be going ahead with that next season and, again, Tane Emnett side. So, interesting time for the Brumbies. On the other game, I still in disbelief the Blues made it as close as they were. The Blues, like, you just sit there and you go, where was that fight in those 8 losses that they had? Like, I know they had some close losses to the Brumbies, to the Moana Pacifica, but I go, they just, this team the past 2 weeks has looked like a different team. Like, they have looked far superior. They look like they're defending champions, and they finally show it to us, again, too late, too little. And to go into Canterbury against the Crusaders, against a team who, 31-0 now in finals is just ridiculous. And I just go, it just was too little, too late. Some really good standouts there. Again, I think the skill set on display from the 4-pack, especially the Crusaders one, is just out of this world. Again, it would have been, and this is why I think that Brumbies Crusaders game, you look back at that, it was so fascinating. Those are 2 teams with just dominant 4-packs. And even that, the Brumbies started to struggle a little bit at scrum time towards the end of the game once the subs came on after Slipper and Alatoa came up. So I go, Chiefs 4-pack will be licking their lips as well. Crusaders 4-packs will be licking their lips. It's going to be one highly contested game. What way is your mind swinging to start us off, Husey?
Crusaders aren't losing Canterbury, I tell you what, I am very excited there because it was two years ago we had the exact same finals, right?
Except in Hamilton.
So now the shoe's on the other foot, right? The Chiefs couldn't get it done at home. How are they going to stack up going to Canterbury? Gut feeling, not as well. It's going to be an incredible turnaround for Rob Penny and a bit of vindication for him after last season and his disaster of a career at the Waratahs. So I tell you what, I bet you that man will be firing up his team like nobody else. But it's all going to come down to, as it did in the last two finals, to Damien McKenzie. It's all going to come down to DMAC and what version of DMAC shows up. And that's not saying like, oh, DMAC has highs and lows. No, he has highs and then he has peaks, right? Like he's not, if the general talent wave of up and down is here, McKenzie's up here sort of just going bobbing up and down. He's going to need to be at his absolute peak for the Chiefs to be able to beat the Crusaders.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I speak for all rugby fans here now. The Chiefs, don't fuck this up. Like you lost a qualifying final. You showed us the cracks that we have in our final system. You've done all of this. What we need is for you to fucking deliver. On Saturday night, we need you to deliver. We cannot handle a one-off Crusaders blip and then they're back to fucking winning again. I just cannot do it. I can't. I need this to be 31-1. I need this Undertaker's-like streak to be over, and I need it to end on Saturday because if it doesn't, I don't know what I'll do with myself. Like, this to me is like the English winning the World Cup. Like, I thought the Crusaders were dead and buried. I was like, we're not going to see another Crusaders championship run for a long time. I was like, Hurricanes, the Waratahs are strong, the Brumbies are always there. Look, the Blues are new and improved. Chiefs, back-to-back finals, they're good. Crusaders aren't even going to make the finals. Here we are, them hosting another fucking final where they go in as favourites. Let's not hide from the fact if you don't lose at home, you're going to go in as favourites. Although I think the Chiefs are playing better rugby, they go in as favourites. DMAC, I need something special. I don't often ask a lot of a team that got my team knocked out of a competition because they lost, but I'm asking a lot of you because I need it. I think this is literally everyone in the world, bar Canterbury right now, is saying, just don't let this happen. Don't do it again. It would be absolutely unfathomable for us to have to sit here and talk about another Crusaders season win. Like, it's already, that's an insane stat. Like, if you go to any other sport in the world, no other team is like 31-0 in finals time at home. Like, they just aren't. This team being undefeated at home is ridiculous, and we need it to end. I need that to end. I need the Crusaders dynasty to not continue or restart. I just need it to just have another year off. Give us some more time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more.
On that, other finals played, URC Premiership and the top 14 had their first finals weekend. Firstly, on the top 14, they know how to get their finals right. So they had 1 and 2 got a bye, 3 played 6, 4 played 5, and you know how they...
Wow.
It's like it's so easy.
What a revolutionary system.
And you know how they got the television income from one more game? Because they have promotion relegation. So they're second to last, played second in... Because in French rugby, if you come last, you're automatically relegated. If you win the Pro D2, you get automatically put up. So second to last place, second to top in Div 2, and that's a promotion relegation game. And that's, as you can imagine it, that's probably bigger than all the other finals games going on because that means if you're in for the next season. So, again, we obviously don't have this promotion relegation. Could we have a 2-tier team system? I don't know, but how it works, I'm not going to get too into that. But they know how to get... French rugby are doing it so right at the moment, and if you want to be following a system, it's probably French rugby and however they do it. So I just wanted to touch quickly on that.
How's this for a revolutionary idea, right? Okay. So we've got our top 6 teams, top 6 finals, right? We're in the same fantasy football league. We have a lower bracket finals as well, just to keep things interesting down there. So what if you had a secondary finals system where you can't qualify for the top, can't win Super Rugby. If you're a bottom 5 team, you're not in the finals, doesn't matter. But there's a secondary trophy on offer of lower half the bracket. And that way you have another 5 teams competing. That's more games right there. Week 1, you have the first seed get a bye, 2 plays 5, 3 plays 4. And then the highest seed loser from that gets a do-over, falls to the bottom of the bracket, and then the 1 seed plays the lowest seed to get through, something like that. And you've got 3 rounds of that, and it matches along with Super Rugby Pacific Finals as well. Call it like the Challengers Cup or something like that.
Yeah,
easy.
Again,
television
commercial.
It gives all those teams afterwards something else to play for as well, a bit of consolation. So those teams fans also get service in that time. You don't lose the TV audience from the rest of the teams who maybe aren't as interested in watching these finals. And you get 3 more games. And then that way there's no, as well, unfair advantage in the international season where all the players from certain nations get to go into camp early and things like that. Also gives more opportunity for selectors to assess talent, so on and so forth. What a fantastic idea. And you're not even overlapping stadiums or anything. Like, you're not interfering with the other games, you know? Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. Again, more commercial revenue going into pockets. They'll love that idea. Premiership Final. Bath. Jersey I'm wearing. Managed to take out Leicester in a scintillating final. Again, I think I'm going to touch on this now, going into the final, actually. I'm going to touch on world-class players. Because watching 3 games in one weekend, you see, and especially because I saw a Super Rugby game in the morning, then you had the Premiership game early arvo, and then the URC game late arvo. As I said, you can tell those difference between world-class players that stood out. Damien McKenzie, Finn Russell, and Hondre Pollard. Like, I know Hondre Pollard was on the end of an intercept try, like he passed it to Finn Russell, but like you can tell his spatial awareness of rugby and just his tactical awareness of rugby is at such another level. Like, I can understand why South Africa do so well when he's running them around the ship because of how good he is. Same when I went into URC, you saw the likes of Jack Conan and Geordie Barrett. Geordie Barrett, again, absolutely incredible. I need to find a way, I don't know how I'm going to do it, to fit Geordie Barrett and Quinta Pyer into the All Blacks at the centres, and they're both 12s, and I don't know which one. Someone's got to play 13. Geordie Barrett could do it, but another point for a later time. But those 2 players stood out. Willie LaRue stood out for the Bulls, and the Bulls were getting smoked, and he stood out with some like average plays, but it was like he was the only one trying to spark anything, and it was just like you can tell like those players who've played international rugby that are world class. And I would have that group that I've just discussed as world-class. And as we mentioned, like Noel Lolosio, the reason the Brumbies drop-off was probably so great is they lose a potentially, can be in his moments, world-class player. And I just go, you can tell the levels to this of like world-class players, good level, service level, Super Rugby, URC, Premiership players, and then like the average Joes that are still coming through and, you know, doing a job just to do a job. And you could just tell that in those games. And like, I saw 3 very different styles of rugby. Like Super Rugby, you can just tell there's so much more attack. Like both top Premiership and URC, once they got into the 10-metre channel of the other team, were still kicking. So you're like 40 minutes out from the try line and still putting box kicks. There's just more box kick, more contestable kicks. I'm not saying there's not kicking. There was a lot of kicking in the Chiefs versus Brumbies game. But it was just a lot more competitive kicking and a lot more, hey, if we're not making any ground, we're going to kick. And we're not going to risk anything. A lot low risk play. In the URC final, which was incredible, the Bulls just got blown away, which I'll touch base soon. Premiership final, very, very good game. Bath always felt like in control, but as you always feel like in control, but if you're getting coached by, playing against a team that's coached by Michael Cheika, are you ever really in control? Because he's always got something up his sleeve. Had one of the greatest dummy spits, as he does, on the sideline. Because the refereeing wasn't going in their advantage, I'm not even going to try and get into that, purely because I'm not a scrum technician. I'm not going to try and act like I am. It was a lot of scrum penalties. The scrums of both the Premiership and the URC were a complete and utter mess. You couldn't tell who was dominant. Again, I totally believe there was some issues there, and I can understand the frustration, because as I was watching those games, I was like, I'm frustrated watching these and not understanding who's getting a penalty and why they're getting a penalty. And I love scrums. I think scrums are awesome. I think you need to be able to show your dominance. I couldn't see any of that, and so then I just felt like the ref was blowing a penalty for the sake of blowing a penalty. But the biggest moment came just about 10 minutes out. Dan Cole went for a charge down, retiring Dan Cole went for a charge down, and caught Finn Russell. Now, you've only just seen this, as Southern Hemisphere does not care about Northern Hemisphere rugby, as we shouldn't, because you guys don't win World Cups. But you've just seen this before the podcast. You've heard about it, obviously. What are your instinct or straight first thoughts on that incident?
You know, I guess maybe this is coming from an Australian fan who is just used to the refs taking the harshest view of things. To me, it does look like a card. Like, I just imagine if an Australian player had done that, would it be a card? Yes, it would be, right? We saw a very similar situation last year with Felipe Dangunu getting carded for a very similar thing, right? So I can't say that's inconsistent with other ref rulings that I've seen. That being said, it is a bit like, what's he supposed to do there? Like, he's gone for a charge down. Do you want him to not go for a charge down? Like, charge down's part of the game, right? It always looks worse in slow motion than it does in real time because it looks like he's turning into him. He's not. He's just gone for a charge down. And that's just how his body moves. He's a big old prop, right? He's a big old man. Doesn't have the world's best body control, right? He's just gone for a charge down. I think it is a bit rough, but at the same time, that's sort of the game, That's my instinct. That's maybe I'm just jaded and bitter because I know as an Australian rugby fan, that call would go against us 10 out of 10 times. So I'm just sort of maybe a bit like, yeah, fuck them. At least someone else is getting the short end of the stick for once, Yeah. But yeah, I mean, as I said, I saw a very similar situation last year with Felipe Daunguna getting a card. So I think Daunguna got a red before he got a yellow upgraded to a red, which is pretty ridiculous in my mind. But yeah, it's a harsh way to end a career. But I mean, he can at least say he went out being 100%. Like he literally went out 100%, like trying to charge down a kick, right? Giving everything for the team. He literally gave the end of his career to this team. So yeah, it's harsh, but as I said, that's sort of where the game is at the moment.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like, I think it's harsh. I think I always have an issue with the charge down one where they say, if you leave your arms up, it wouldn't be a yellow card. And it's like, so I'm meant to just keep falling into someone with my arms up and it's going to be all fine. And then all of a sudden my elbow catches their head and then you're like, actually your elbow made contact with their head, so now it's a red card. And it's like, so like, what are you meant to do there is the big question. I think that
slap him. Just go for a slap. Like instead, come down like this and just make sure you hit him with your hand. And if you hit him with your hand, you're fine. So that's what you got to concentrate on. You go up for the charge, and as you're coming down, don't turn your shoulder. Don't just fall into them. Angle your hand to hit the side of their face. You'll be all fine.
Oh, yeah. And so I go, I think World Rugby needs to come out and sort that out and go like, this is what we expect or this is what we see. Because again, he didn't make contact with head. So it's like, it's there. And I go, I think you're right. I think I see that and I go, it's not a yellow card, but it is inconsistency rise with rules that World Rugby have made. Like, I don't blame the ref for showing a yellow card there. I think a penalty would have sufficed, but I don't blame him for showing a yellow card because I think it follows what World Rugby has asked. What is he meant to do there? We don't know. Like, World Rugby need to come out of that. Second point to it, what's a prop trying to do charge down? Like, come on now. Like, you don't get airborne very often, and when you do, you shouldn't be. That's the thing like that. I totally get it. Effort for the team. He's putting an effort. He's trying to put pressure on. Again, you take the game out of your own hands, as like the UFC and boxing always says, don't put the game in the judge or the result in the judge's hands. Don't put the result in the ref's hands. If you're not in that situation, he can't give a penalty or a yellow card for it. I think it's harsh. I totally agree with that. I think people are rightfully angry that it shouldn't be a yellow card. I can understand the anger. Just to me, it is like, I don't think he can go anywhere else as a referee with World Rugby with the way they've done it. So I'd like to see World Rugby come out and say, on a charge down situation, because Caleb Clark had a bad one a few years ago where he went fully up, like jumped up and ended up hitting the guy with his backside and knocking the player out and got red-carded for it. And it's like, you put yourself in those positions, they have to do something. I don't know. I think World Rugby can come back to us with that. But it was an interesting little moment, and in the end, the game was run probably not from that, but allowed them to score points and lead to a win for Bath. The URC Final, Leinster just rolled right over the Bulls. And so now, to all those South Africans out there that normally probably dislike our comments most of the time because we're not in favour of South African, but this was really interesting to me because I haven't seen a South African team get that dominated in like a final sense in like a big game moment in a long time. Like, it was 19-0 after like 20 minutes, and I was like, oh my God, they could roll them here at Leinster. Like, that's how they were on fire. Like, Geordie Barrett, Artie Snyman came off the bench, but again, that's Bulls team's made up of a very decent, like I talk about Willie LaRue's, Marco van Standen. They had a very good amount of like South African players and a South African identity. I know Jake White, the coach, came out and said, I need what Leinster have, which is all these internationals. And this Leinster team's stacked. Like, don't go, they were underdogs, the Bulls going into it. I don't want to hide that. But just the performance as a whole, that was so un-South African. Like, they just looked like they had no creativity behind them. Like, Willie LaRue was trying everything, but it was just let's try and smash and let's just hope that that works, and it just didn't. And they didn't really have a lot to turn to when it didn't work. And I just sat there and I was like, I've never seen a South African team, a dominant South African team, like you make the finals, you're in a dominant team, look that average. And I want to know from South Africans that I know they had lost a couple of players to injury. I know there was a few other things going, but it was a surprise to me to see it that one-sided. But again, as I've just said, like Leinster are a very, very, very good team. I don't want to take away from that, but yeah. And then to top it all off, like the two best players arguably on the field was Geordie Barrett when he was playing out of his skin, and then RG Snyman was incredible when he came on. Like, I understand now more and more why the South Africans are winning World Cups. Like, you have good, solid teams playing good rugby over the world, making finals in this URC, and then you add a Snyman, you add Faf de Klerk from Japan and a Deande from Japan, and you're like, well, fuck, like, yeah, of course they're going to be pretty fucking good. Like, Snyman's just a different beast. So, look, Leinster get the win. Geordie Barrett, I can't wait for him to come back next season for the Hurricanes, because I think he's going to be just most incredible player of all time. And it'll be really interesting to see that transition with him and Rico then going over there, but they get the job done. Last thing, to finish this off, my friend, your Aussie team, Super Rugby's finished for them. Again, haven't made a final. But it leaves now the question, who's your starting for a 15 for, firstly, the Fiji game? Let's take the Fiji game into context. And then I guess that will probably be what you'd expect the 15 to be.
Yeah. All right. I'm just I need to consider this because I'm pulling up some what you call it? Some names here, some depth that I want to make sure I don't forget, right? Okay. Right. So, number one, pretty easy. Everyone knows who this is. Angus Bell. Lock for the team. No questions asked there. No one needs to talk about that. Two, I'd probably have Billy Pollard. Has had a good season for the Brumbies. Not really much to talk about there either. Three, now I'm going to say something here very early on that might come out as controversial, right? I do not have Taniela Tupou in my starting 15 or my 23. I don't think Taniela Tupou, I think he's had a rough season. I think he'd be the first to stick his hand up and say it's not been his best season and he's got a lot of work to do. Now, he's had a very rough year. Like last year, he moved his entire life to Melbourne, then found out the team was collapsing. He's had to move his whole life to New South Wales. There's a lot going on there. He's got family overseas and stuff. Totally understand. And he's come out about how he's struggling. And you could see how the Waratahs rallied behind him when he scored tries and things like that. That being said, had some bad mental mistakes, some poor fitness. I think Taniela Tupou needs to take this time. I think Taniela Tupou could do with such a benefit from a break from international duties, right? A chance for him to get his body right in terms of and I'm not talking about fitness. I don't want to be ragging on someone for that, but in terms of letting it recover as well, like that's a big frame to be carrying around. And he's a very, very strong guy. We know this. That takes a lot of effort to maintain, and it takes a lot of effort to stay healthy. So I think Taniela Tupou could really benefit with the Euro. I think it's really unfortunate that the Euro has to take off is a British and Irish Lions year, but that's how I'd be looking at it. I'd be looking at it for the 2027 World Cup, right? If I'm Rugby Australia, that's the next big focus after British and Irish Lions. Like, you need to see who's going to help you win now for British and Irish Lions. I don't think Taniela Tupou's there this season. Maybe after a bit of a short break now and some conditioning, he might be there. I don't know. That's up to the selectors to assess. But currently, don't think he's there. So 3, I've got Alan Alaalatoa. Conversely to Taniela Tupou, Alan Alaalatoa's had one of his best seasons. I think he's been an absolute force for the Brumbies. I think he's been spectacular. 4, I've got Nick Frost. 5, I've got one of my international players in Will Skelton coming in. Get some of that big size in there. Back rows where it gets interesting, right? Back rows where it gets very, very interesting because Harry Wilson is from all reports not going to be captain. Now, I'm not going to have Jake Gordon as my starting or bench halfback either. So my captaincy is going to go elsewhere, right? But what do I do with the back row here? Because we've got the likes of Luke Reimer, we've got the likes of Carlo Tizzano, we've got the likes of Fraser McWright, we've got Bobby V, of course. We've got Harry Wilson. I'm not discounting Harry Wilson, right? But you know, Langy Gleeson's also had a good season. Langy Gleeson's not on my team. I think I'm actually probably a little bit lower on Langy Gleeson than most people because of his handling issues, which are just unforgivable, right? It takes away so much from the good there at international level, especially. You know, and I'm sure there's other names that I'm forgetting as well of fantastic other players out there. But Sarah Uru is another one for consideration. The way I have it going is I've got two very, very tall locks already in Frost and Skelton. So I'm okay to sacrifice a bit of height in the back row. I would like to see the Tizzano, Valentini, McWright back row put in work. Just go in there, hammer some cunts. Well, hammer some. I don't think I should say the word on the podcast, but you know, who was it? It was one of the NRL players had it on their wristband the other year. Just like smash some C. You know, like that's what
Kane
I want
Evans.
those three to do.
Was it Kane Evans? Yeah, Kane
probably
Evans.
was.
Yeah.
But yeah, get those three in there and do that. Right. Starting halfback. I'm going spicy here. All right. Ryan Lonergan. I think Ryan Lonergan has quietly put together a very, very good season and a very, very underrated season. I was watching him with the Brumbies in that final and watching him the week before as well. Just tremendous speed of the ball off the turf and just passes exactly where they need to be. And it's got that ability to be shifty in the ruck as well. So I have him as my starting and I have Tate McDermott as my finisher night because I think Tate McDermott will benefit from that end of the game fatigue of some of the forwards and doing his thing where he darts through a rock and somehow scores a try out of nothing. Starting 10. This is essentially the call of the year for the Wallabies, right? Who is your starting 10 and who is your finishing 10, right? There's a lot of names. Now we're taking out Noah Lolesio because he's not in consideration by Joe Schmidt, right? Which is unfortunate. I think Lolesio has got something to offer the Wallabies, but he's put himself in that position. It is what it is. He knew the consequences, so forth. As far as I see it, you have got three credible candidates for 10 for the Wallabies left over. You've got Tom Liner, you've got Ben Donaldson, and you've got James O'Connor. I would like to see. I don't think James O'Connor. I'm not picking James O'Connor for the Fijian test because I think there's a high possibility of injury in that game, and he's older than the other two. I would like to save him. So my starting 10 is going to be Tom Liner, and my bench 10 is going to be Ben Donaldson. That's for the Fiji game. If this was a Lions game, I would be putting James O'Connor as my starter and Tom Liner as my finisher. Wing. One wing I've got Max Jorgensen. The other wing I've got Tom Wright. In the centres, I've got Len Ikitau and at 13, Samu Karevi at 12, and I got Joseph Suali'i at 15.
Ooh. Interesting. Very, very interesting. I mean, the Nine's obviously the standout one because even the reports of Gordon.
I know. But I'm not Joe Schmidt. This is my picks. This is not Joe Schmidt's picks.
Totally. And again, if anything, you'd be favourable to the rugby player that is Jake Gordon. So interesting. I think the back three is going to be really interesting now, especially if Joe Schmidt continues to play Suali in centre. Because I think Tom Wright, to me, like he was so incredible this year for the Brumbies. Like I think he can actually he can do a job, and I think it depends. Again, we know Samu Karevi's there, and I know you like.
I think Wright can do that same job on the wing.
I agree. You know? I agree, and I don't want to. I also agree with that. I think I think he can do a job at wing and 15, and Suali'i can then play anywhere in that 13ish position. But again, it'll be interesting with the centre selections. I don't mind. I prefer your selections. I think Jorgo will be interesting if he's in there, just if he's ready. Because I know
he's back health-wise. He was playing shoot shield. So
yeah, but Filippo Dalguni, his name will be in there. Harry Potter's name will be in there. Callaway's name will be in there as points of interest. But yeah, I have no problems with the team. Look, that back row is going to be one of the most interesting talked about positions in groups I think we've seen in the Wallabies in a while. And so I really like the and
I just want to explain a little more reasoning as well behind my backlines as well, right? So I think if you put Suali'i in the centres, you've got to leave one of Ikitau and Karevi out, which I think is also a mistake because I think they're both fantastic players. then you might be saying, okay, we'll put Suali'i on a wing and put Wright in at fullback. I think Wright's knowledge of the game is better than Suali'i's, and so he would know when he can do more on the wing compared to Suali'i. I think the fullback gives Suali'i the implicit freedom to roam a bit and to do more spectacular things and get himself more involved. When he's on a wing, again, we saw this 12 years ago with the Lions and Israel Folau, right? And Israel Folau, again, another recent convert as well. So it's the parallels are everywhere, right? He was put on a wing, he was parked out on a wing, and he was hardly involved at all. It was hard for him to get involved in that way. I think that Tom Wright has got I think it's a bigger rap on Tom Wright to say put him on a wing and know that he will be just as involved in the game as he would be at fullback. Whereas I don't think Suali'i would be. So that's also part of the reason is that Tom Wright's instincts to know when he can get involved and when he needs to back off as a winger is better than what Suali'i's would be as a winger. So there's that part as well as allowing Ikitau and Karevi to both be involved in the game, because I think that's an incredible center pairing there, Ikitau and Karevi as well.
Totally, couldn't agree more. Look, it'll be really interesting. Obviously, we're mere days away now, probably from a squad being named and selected, and seeing what comes from that. But we will keep you in the loop. Make sure you let us know if you think Husey was on the money or if you liked Husey's Wallaby team. But yeah, for us, we'll be back next week to wrap up the final of Super Rugby. We are praying for a Chiefs win, and we'll be hoping to come back with great news this time next week. But for now, thank you for joining us. I've been Luke. That has been Husey. We'll see you later. Goodbye.
Peace.
Easy as.